As wildfires are becoming larger, more costly, and more deadly, a method to more effectively protect lives and property is requisite. Good morning, my name is Farley, and I'm going to tell you about the creation of such a method. First, let us begin with a little motivation. Since 1990, total wildland acreage has quadrupled. Of the years between 2000 and 2012, 10 fire seasons exceeded $1 billion in federal suppression costs. Perhaps most importantly, firefighting deaths increased 26% in the period 1998 to 2006 from the preceding 8-year period. Incidents like the tragic deaths of 19 firefighters battling the Yarnell Hill Fire in Arizona in June of this year occur all too often. These harrowing statistics are likely due to a combination of factors, including fire suppression, fuel management practices, and global climate change. Regardless of the cause, however, these statistics cannot continue to rise. While adapting to new forest management strategies and the realities of a changing world are important objectives for the future, reducing firefighting deaths can and must be done today. My honors thesis project aims to create a method of determining if existing fire station infrastructure is adequately located to protect areas of the highest wildfire risk. To accomplish this, a location's potential for a hazardous fire will be compared against the response time from the nearest fire stations. The entire project will be done using a Geographic Information System, or GIS, which allows the analysis of spatial information and is capable of producing graphic outputs that can be clearly interpreted by local stakeholders. In this talk, I will focus primarily on the creation of a decision support system to determine areas of a landscape with the highest wildfire hazard. To illustrate my model, I will use examples from the Andrews National Forest in Southern California. The model is quite versatile and is capable of evaluating expected fire behavior for a moment in time or for average conditions. The model is designed to guide a variety of questions, including, if I'm a citizen, where do I not want to live in relation to wildfires? If I'm an urban planner, where do I want to restrict construction or more strictly enforce building codes? If I'm a fire management official, where are the most dangerous areas to dispatch my men and my equipment? The following slides will use some important wildfire terminology. Fire hazard for any particular forest stand or landscape is the potential magnitude of fire behavior and effects as a function of fuel conditions. Flame length is the distance from the average flame tip to the base of the fire. This is calculated in my model because, as Rothermel noted, it is an elusive parameter that exists in the eye of the beholder. It is a poor quantity to use in a scientific or engineering sense, but it is so readily apparent to fireline personnel and so readily conveys a sense of fire intensity that it is worth featuring as a primary fire variable. Fireline intensity is a more technical measurement. Calculated from Byron's equation, it relates rate of spread and heat release per unit area. Finally, the input that perhaps most completely dictates fire behavior is fuel moisture. It is defined as the moisture content of dead organic fuels expressed as a percentage of the oven dry weight of the sample. There are several different classes of fuel moisture depending on fuel particle size and whether the fuel is alive or dead. Located in the San Gabriel Mountains surrounding the greater metropolitan Los Angeles area, the Andrews National Forest proves an excellent study site for developing and testing a wildfire risk model. This study focuses on a selection of forests directly north of the city of Los Angeles. The study site is 1,952 square kilometers. It is an extremely rugged area with many slopes approaching the vertical. The heterogeneity of fuel types and weather, as well as the large number of historical fires, make this an interesting area to study. While the majority of the forest is chaparral, it contains a wide variety of vegetation types, including grasslands, shrub oaks, and at higher elevations, pine and fir forests. Fire is an integral part of the ecosystems in Southern California and is important to forest health. The Andrews National Forest has experienced more than 4,800 fires since recorded history began in 1900, ranging in size from several square meters to tens of thousands of acres. I will briefly describe my methodological process here and then go into more detail for several important steps. I first began by downloading spatial data sets freely available over the internet and nationally consistent. This ensures that the experiment can be applied to any location in the United States with minimal hassle. Second, the data was manipulated so that it was limited to the study site in a common projection and datum and with a standard cell size. Using the ArcFuels toolbar, which joins GIS software with third-party fire modeling packages, the data was converted to a format more suited for further analysis. FlamMap, which will be discussed later, analyzed the landscape for potential fire behavior. The data was then imported back into the GIS, where it was spatially joined so that each point on the landscape had several fire behavior variables associated with it. The landscape was queried, and points that met a user's condition were extracted and defined as hotspots. This model has a variety of assumptions and limitations that may cause erroneous calculations of fire behavior and are important to understand. The model is built on many other models, each with their own assumptions. These assumptions are factored into each calculation, and so may appear in my model. Second, remotely sensed spatial vegetation data is far better than interpolating sparsely spaced point data sources. However, it is only available at coarse spatial resolutions and is not updated regularly. This could cause misinterpretation of fuels and underrepresentation of undergrowth and ladder fuels. Third, the wind data was interpolated from 11 point sources in the region and may not incorporate topographic discontinuities such as ridges that affect fire behavior. Lastly, fuel moistures were input for the entire landscape rather than a grid that gives each point a unique value. Furthermore, it takes a time-consuming measurement to determine live fuel moisture, and so there are few records. To simplify reality, this model uses a technique called raster modeling. A raster is a data storage format which consists of a matrix of cells organized into a grid where each cell contains a value representing information. In this model, a landscape is represented by 14 separate rasters, giving each cell a value for themes such as wind speed, wind direction, vegetation height, fuel type, slope, elevation, and many others. These inputs were taken in by FlamMap to calculate fire behavior for each cell. FlamMap is a fire behavior mapping and analysis program that computes potential fire behavior characteristics over a landscape. The software computes the expected fire behavior for a specified and constant set of weather and fuel conditions. Furthermore, each cell is calculated independently. Cells do not impact one another. FlamMap cannot map fire spread. Instead, its output lends itself well to identifying hazardous fuel and topographic combinations, aiding in prioritization and assessment. In this model, FlamMap was used to calculate flame length, fire line intensity, rate of spread, and heat release per unit area. Once the data from the FlamMap calculations were imported successfully back into the GIS, analysis of hotspots could begin. The rasters were spatially joined so that each cell had several fire behavior variables associated with it. Several climatic variables, including average monthly precipitation and average temperature, were added to extend the versatility of the analysis. The model user can query any combination of these variables to assess dangerous hotspots. For example, one could determine areas with high flame length and high rate of spread, or find areas with low average precipitation that are currently experiencing high winds. The possibilities are quite wide, allowing a model user to determine the combination he or she believes to be the most pertinent. Each cell in the landscape either meets the conditions set forth by the user, or it does not. The cells that do meet the user's query are decomposed into a set of points. The points are assigned a 100-meter radius and then serve as the basis of a point density calculation. The more points inside of the radius, the higher the coverage. The result is a determination of the density of cells per hectare that meet the user's query. To illustrate these concepts, I completed an assessment of the Angeles National Forest for extreme fire behavior. A moment in time, July 26, 2013 at 11 a.m. is presented next to the climatological average conditions for the month of July. The landscape was queried for cells that have flame lengths greater than 20 feet or a fire line intensity exceeding 2,000 BTUs per foot per second. Fire behavior analysts describe this type of fire as extreme. Quote, fire spreads rapidly, presenting extreme resistance to control. Any form of attack will probably not be effective. Safety of firefighters in the area is of critical concern. End quote. Red indicates that nearly 100% of the hectare is subject to this extreme fire behavior. Green indicates that only 1 to 25% of the surrounding hectare would exhibit this behavior. The absence of color denotes that while a fire may occur, it will not result in this behavior given the input conditions. The climatological average is likely to aid in planning efforts, informing citizens and local decision makers on where to limit settlement. The moment in time, on the other hand, is likely to be of more use to firefighters, as it shows the most dangerous areas for a particular moment. It is important to note the variation between the real-time and the climatological average assessments. I have developed models that will intake raw data sets for any site in the contiguous United States and process the data with minimal user interaction. An initial result can be produced in as little as 1 day, and subsequent near real-time results can be produced in 30 to 60 minutes, depending on data availability, data quality, and computer hardware. This information is invaluable to citizens considering the purchase of a home in the ever-expanding wildland-urban interface. It is important for local urban planners to know which regions of their jurisdiction are most likely to be burned by an intense fire. Most importantly, however, this model can save lives. While firefighting management personnel receive weather and wind updates throughout the day, it is difficult for them to spatially synthesize this data. An examination of 2 recent deadly fires, the Esperanza Fire of 2006 and the Yarnell Hill Fire of 2013, reveals that potential extreme fire behavior and the possibility of high winds were communicated to division supervisors at least 80 minutes before the burnover event. The result is an unacceptable loss of life. Fire experts have noted that the majority of fatalities occur when the fire burns through light brush, grass, or herbs, when there is a shift in wind direction or wind speed, and when the fire responds to topographic conditions and runs uphill. These conditions can be explicitly modeled in the model presented here. The application of this model would allow incident commanders to evaluate a unit's location in relation to a hotspot and ensure that crews are not ordered into a situation that compromises their safety. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Professor Radke, for being my mentor, and thank you to the CERT Foundation for both the financial support and the logistical support.